Have you ever had this strange experience? You watch an English video, you understand almost everything, you read articles without too much difficulty, and you can even understand podcasts like this one. But then someone asks you a simple question in English, and suddenly your mind goes completely blank.
Honestly, that's one of the most common problems English learners face. And the interesting thing is that it doesn't mean your English is bad. In fact, it often means your listening skills are much stronger than your speaking skills.
That's actually reassuring, because I think so many learners believe they're failing when that happens.
Exactly. They think, I understand English, so why can't I speak? They start doubting themselves. But understanding a language and producing a language are two very different skills.
Can you explain that a little more? Because I think a lot of people assume they're basically the same thing.
Sure. Think about sports. Watching professional football every weekend doesn't automatically make you a great football player. You might understand the rules perfectly. You know what the players should do. But until you actually get on the field and practice, your body doesn't know how to perform those movements naturally.
So listening is like watching the game, and speaking is actually playing it.
That's a perfect comparison. Listening is a passive skill. Your brain recognizes words and meanings. Speaking is active. Your brain has to choose vocabulary, remember grammar, organize ideas, pronounce the words, and do all of that in real time.
Wow. When you list everything like that, it sounds like speaking is asking the brain to do 5 different jobs at once.
That's exactly what's happening. And for learners, it feels overwhelming because they expect themselves to perform like...
I remember when I first started learning another language. I could understand my teacher most of the time, but when she asked me a question, I suddenly forgot everything I had learned.
That's a universal experience. Your knowledge doesn't disappear. Your brain just needs more time to access it.
So, if someone freezes during a conversation, it doesn't mean they forgot English?
Not all. Most of the time, the words are still there. They're just difficult to retrieve under pressure.
Pressure really changes everything, doesn't it?
It does. When you're alone watching YouTube, there's no pressure. Nobody is waiting for your answer. You can pause the video if you need to. But in a conversation, another person is looking at you, waiting. Suddenly your brain feels like it's taking an exam.
That's so true. Even simple questions like, "How was your day?" can suddenly feel difficult.
Right? And then something interesting happens. The learner starts thinking about every possible mistake before saying anything.
Instead of speaking, they're editing their sentence in their head.
Exactly. They're checking grammar, searching for vocabulary, worrying about pronunciation, and wondering if they'll sound silly.
Which means they aren't really listening anymore.
That's an important point. Once anxiety appears, your attention shifts. Instead of focusing on communication, you focus on perfection.
And perfection is impossible.
Absolutely. Even native speakers make mistakes every single day. They forget words, change sentences halfway through, use incorrect grammar sometimes, and nobody really notices because communication is the goal.
I think learners imagine that fluent speakers never hesitate.
Actually, fluent speakers hesitate all the time. Listen carefully to conversations between native speakers. You'll hear words like, well, and plenty of pauses. Fluency doesn't mean speaking perfectly. It means continuing the conversation naturally.
That's such an important difference.
It really is. Many learners believe they need perfect English before they start speaking. But the opposite is true. You become better because you speak, not before you speak.
So waiting until you're ready can actually slow your progress.
Definitely. Imagine learning to swim by only reading books about swimming. You can understand every technique, but until you get into the water, your body won't develop the skill.
That's another great example.
Language works the same way. Your brain needs repeated speaking experience before conversations begin to feel natural.
So today we're really talking to everyone who's ever thought, why can I understand English but not speak it?
Exactly. And the good news is that this problem has solutions. It's not a sign that you're untalented or too old or incapable of becoming fluent. It's simply a stage that almost every language learner experiences.
And throughout this episode, we're going to explore exactly why this happens and, more importantly, what you can do to finally speak with more confidence.
Because once you understand what's happening inside your brain, you'll realize you're much closer to speaking confidently than you probably think.
So now that we know understanding and speaking are different skills, let's talk about something almost every learner has experienced at least once: freezing during conversation.
Yes, you know the answer, you know the words, but somehow nothing comes out.
It's almost like your brain presses a pause button.
That's exactly how many learners describe it. And usually, the biggest reason isn't grammar or vocabulary. It's fear.
Fear of making mistakes?
That's the number one reason. People worry they'll use the wrong tense, pronounce a word incorrectly, or choose the wrong vocabulary. And because they're so focused on avoiding mistakes, they stop speaking altogether.
Which is kind of ironic.
It really is. They're trying so hard to avoid making mistakes that they miss the chance to improve.
Where do you think that fear comes from?
There are a few reasons. School is one of them. Many people grow up believing that mistakes mean failure. Every incorrect answer loses points. Every grammar mistake gets corrected. So the brain starts connecting mistakes with embarrassment.
But real conversations aren't exams.
Exactly. They're completely different. In real life, communication matters much more than perfection.
Let's imagine someone says, "Yesterday I go to the supermarket."
A native speaker understands immediately.
They don't stop and say, "Actually, you should say went."
Most people won't. They'll simply continue the conversation because the message is clear.
So learners are often worrying about mistakes that other people don't even care about.
That's right. Most native speakers are surprisingly patient. In fact, many admire people who are learning another language.
I think learners forget that.
They do. Imagine someone is learning your language. Would you laugh because they made one small grammar mistake?
Of course not.
Most people wouldn't. They'd appreciate the effort.
So maybe we're judging ourselves much more harshly than other people are judging us.
I think that's exactly what's happening.
There's another thing I've noticed. Some learners compare themselves to native speakers all the time.
That's a dangerous habit.
Why?
Because the comparison isn't fair. Native speakers have spent thousands and thousands of hours speaking their language. They've been practicing since they were babies.
And learners sometimes expect themselves to sound like that after just a year or two.
Exactly. Imagine learning the piano for 6 months and then comparing yourself to a professional concert pianist.
You'd probably feel terrible.
Even though you're actually making good progress.
That's interesting because progress often feels invisible.
It does, especially with languages. Improvement happens little by little.
One day you suddenly realize you understood an entire movie scene.
Or you answer a question without translating first.
Or you tell a short story without stopping every few seconds.
Those small moments are huge signs of progress.
But because they're gradual, people don't always notice them.
Right. They only notice what they still can't do.
That's such a common mindset.
It is. Imagine climbing a mountain. Instead of looking back at how far you've climbed, you only look at the distance left to the top.
You'd feel like you weren't making any progress.
Even though you've already climbed hundreds of meters.
So confidence isn't something that magically appears one morning.
No, confidence comes from evidence.
What do you mean by that?
Every conversation you finish gives your brain evidence that says, I survived. I communicated. It wasn't perfect, but it worked.
So confidence grows after action, not before it.
Exactly. Many learners think, once I'm confident, I'll start speaking.
But it's actually the opposite.
You speak first, then confidence slowly follows.
That makes a lot of sense.
Think about riding a bicycle. You don't wait until you feel confident before getting on the bike. You practice, you wobble, maybe you fall once or twice, and eventually your confidence grows naturally.
Languages work the same way.
Absolutely.
So if someone listening right now feels nervous every time they speak English, that's normal?
Completely normal. In fact, I'd say almost every successful English speaker has gone through that stage.
Really?
Definitely. If you ask bilingual people about their early experiences, many will tell you they were shy, nervous, and afraid of making mistakes.
But they kept speaking anyway.
Exactly. They understood something very important. Every mistake was a lesson, not proof that they were bad at English.
I love that idea.
Me too, because when you stop treating mistakes as failures, they become stepping stones toward fluency.
And that's a powerful shift in mindset.
It really is. Once you stop chasing perfection, speaking becomes much less stressful and much more enjoyable.
But there's another habit that makes speaking even harder, and I think almost every learner has experienced it.
Ah, yes. The habit of translating every single sentence inside your head before you speak.
And that's exactly what we're going to dive into next. So, let's talk about something that almost every English learner does without even realizing it: translating.
Yes, it's probably one of the biggest reasons people speak slowly, hesitate a lot, or suddenly lose their train of thought.
I think a lot of listeners will recognize this. Someone asks them a question in English, but before answering, they first think of the answer in their own language.
Exactly. Then they try to translate every word into English. And that's where the delay begins.
It's like taking the long route instead of the direct one.
That's a great way to describe it. Imagine you need to travel from your house to your office. There's a straight road that takes 10 minutes. But instead, you drive to another city first, then come back. You'll eventually arrive, but it'll take much longer.
So translating is like taking that unnecessary detour.
Right. Your brain is doing extra work that isn't needed for real conversation.
But isn't translating normal when you're learning?
At the beginning, absolutely. It's completely natural. Your brain needs a bridge between your native language and English. The problem is when that bridge never disappears.
So after a while, we should slowly stop depending on it.
Exactly. Fluent speakers don't translate. They connect English words directly to ideas, pictures, emotions, and experiences.
Can you give us an example?
Sure. When I say the word apple, do you first translate it into your language?
No, I immediately imagine an apple.
Exactly. You see the object in your mind. That's direct thinking.
So ideally, every English word should eventually create an image instead of a translation.
That's the goal. The less you translate, the faster you'll speak.
I guess that's why children learn languages differently.
Absolutely. Babies don't translate because they don't already know another language. When they hear the word dog, they simply connect it to the animal they see.
They build the meaning directly.
Exactly. That's why language becomes automatic over time.
So how can adult learners start thinking more like that?
One simple method is to use very easy English while talking to yourself.
Talking to yourself?
Yes, it might sound a little strange at first, but it's one of the best exercises you can do.
What would that sound like?
Imagine you're making breakfast. Instead of thinking in your native language, you quietly describe what you're doing in simple English. I'm making coffee. The water is hot. I need some bread. Where's my cup?
Those are really simple sentences.
Exactly. Many learners think they need complicated vocabulary to improve. But fluency grows from using simple language quickly and naturally.
So speaking simple English every day is more useful than memorizing difficult words you never actually use.
I would say so. Think about everyday conversations. Most of them use surprisingly common vocabulary.
That's true. We don't spend our day using advanced words every 5 seconds.
Not at all. Native speakers rely on a relatively small group of words most of the time.
Another thing I've noticed is that learners often stop speaking because they can't remember one specific word.
That's another common trap.
For example, maybe they forget the word umbrella.
Right. Instead of continuing, they freeze.
But they could simply say, the thing you use when it rains.
Exactly. That's called paraphrasing, and it's an incredibly valuable skill.
Native speakers do that too, don't they?
All the time. Everyone forgets words occasionally. Good communicators don't stop. They explain the idea differently.
So communication is really about sharing ideas, not finding the perfect word.
That's exactly it.
I think learners sometimes imagine that fluent speakers know every English word.
Not even close. There are thousands of English words that native speakers don't know.
Really?
Of course, English has an enormous vocabulary. Nobody knows every word. Fluent speakers simply know how to keep communicating even when they don't have the exact word they want.
That's actually encouraging.
It is, because it means fluency isn't about having a perfect vocabulary. It's about being flexible.
So instead of stopping, keep talking.
Exactly. If you don't know one word, use 5 easier words instead.
That's such a simple strategy.
And the funny thing is, listeners usually don't even notice.
So we've talked about fear of mistakes and translating in your head. But there's another huge reason why learners struggle to speak.
Yes, and honestly, this one surprises people the most.
Because many learners spend years studying English.
Without actually speaking it on a regular basis.
They practice reading. They practice listening. They study grammar.
But when it comes to opening their mouth and speaking every day, they hardly do it.
And that's exactly what we're going to explore next, because speaking is a skill that only grows through speaking itself. So we've talked about fear. We've talked about translating in your head. But now let's look at something even more practical. What if the biggest problem is simply not getting enough speaking practice?
Honestly, I think that's true for a huge number of learners.
Even people who study English every single day?
Yes, because studying English and speaking English aren't always the same thing.
That's interesting.
Think about a typical learner's week. They might spend hours watching YouTube videos, reading articles, reviewing vocabulary, or completing grammar exercises.
Which are all useful.
Absolutely. Those activities are important. But if they only spend 5 minutes actually speaking, it's no surprise that speaking feels difficult.
It's like someone who watches cooking shows every evening but rarely cooks.
Exactly. They learn a lot about cooking, but they don't develop the hands-on experience that comes from actually preparing meals.
So speaking needs its own kind of practice.
It does. Your mouth, your tongue, your breathing, your pronunciation, and your brain all become more coordinated through repetition.
Is that why speaking starts to feel more automatic after a while?
Yes. At first, every sentence feels like hard work. But after hundreds of conversations, your brain begins recognizing common patterns.
instead of building every sentence from scratch.
Right. You start using complete chunks of language.
What do you mean by chunks?
They're groups of words that native speakers use together all the time. For example, I don't think so, that makes sense, to be honest, it depends, or the good news is.
So instead of thinking about each individual word, you remember the whole phrase.
Exactly. That's one reason fluent speakers respond so quickly.
So learners shouldn't only memorize single vocabulary words.
That's right. Learning useful expressions is often much more effective because conversations are built from these ready-made pieces.
That sounds much more practical.
It is. And another habit that helps a lot is speaking every single day, even if it's only for 10 or 15 minutes.
Some people might think that's not enough.
Actually, consistency is usually more important than long study sessions.
Really?
Imagine going to the gym for 4 hours once a month.
You probably wouldn't make much progress.
Exactly. But if you exercise for 20 minutes every day, you'd improve much faster.
Language learning works the same way.
Very much so. Your brain loves repetition.
So, what could someone do during those 10 or 15 minutes?
There are lots of simple exercises. One of my favorites is describing your day out loud.
Like telling a story?
Yes. You could talk about what you did yesterday, what you're doing today, or what you plan to do tomorrow.
Even if nobody is listening?
Especially if nobody is listening. When you're alone, there's no pressure. You can stop, think, and try again.
That's a great way to build confidence.
Exactly. Another excellent technique is shadowing.
I've heard that word before, but I think many learners aren't sure what it actually means.
Shadowing is when you listen to a native speaker and repeat what they say almost immediately.
So you're copying their pronunciation, rhythm, and intonation.
That's right. You're not just repeating words. You're training your mouth to move the way English naturally sounds.
Should learners pause after every sentence?
At first, yes. Listen to one sentence, pause the audio, and repeat it. As you improve, try speaking at the same time as the speaker.
That sounds challenging.
It is, but it's incredibly effective.
And I guess it also improves listening.
Exactly. You're training multiple skills at once.
How long should someone practice shadowing?
Even 10 minutes a day can make a noticeable difference after a few weeks.
That's encouraging because it doesn't require hours of free time.
Not at all. Small daily habits often beat big, inconsistent efforts.
What about speaking with other people?
That's another important step. At some point, you need real conversations because real conversations are unpredictable.
You don't know what the other person is going to say.
Exactly. That forces your brain to react naturally instead of following a script.
Some learners don't have English-speaking friends, though.
And that's much less of a problem today than it was 10 years ago.
Because of technology?
Yes. Today you can practice with AI, language exchange partners, online communities, or conversation groups from almost anywhere in the world.
That's amazing when you think about it.
It really is. Years ago, many learners had almost no opportunities to speak English outside the classroom. Today, opportunities are everywhere if you're willing to use them.
So the challenge isn't always finding someone to practice with.
Often, it's simply building the habit of speaking regularly.
And once that habit becomes part of your daily routine, everything starts improving together.
Exactly. Your confidence grows. Your vocabulary becomes easier to access. Your pronunciation improves. And most importantly, speaking begins to feel more natural instead of stressful.
So we've covered why speaking is difficult and how to practice it effectively. But there's one final question that almost every English learner wants answered.
The question everyone asks sooner or later.
How long will it actually take me to become fluent?
And that's exactly what we'll explore in the final part of our conversation.
So here we are, the final part of today's conversation. And I think we've reached the question that almost every English learner has asked at some point.
I know exactly what's coming.
How long does it take to become fluent?
That's probably the most common language learning question in the world.
And I have a feeling the answer isn't going to be simple.
You're right, because the truth is there isn't one timeline that fits everyone.
Why not?
Well, think about it. Every learner starts from a different level. Some people study for 15 minutes a day. Others practice for 2 hours. Some speak with native speakers every week. Others rarely get the chance.
So there are a lot of variables.
Exactly. Your study habits, your consistency, the type of practice you do, and even your confidence all affect how quickly you improve.
I think social media sometimes creates unrealistic expectations.
It definitely can.
You see videos with titles like, "Become fluent in 30 days."
And while those titles get attention, they're usually not realistic for most people.
So, what should learners expect instead?
They should expect gradual progress. Language learning isn't a straight line. Some weeks you'll feel like you're improving very quickly. Other weeks you'll feel completely stuck.
Even though you're still improving?
Exactly. Your brain is still learning behind the scenes. Sometimes you don't notice the progress until suddenly something that used to feel difficult becomes easy.
I've experienced that before.
Most learners have. One day you realize you understood an entire conversation without subtitles, or you answer someone instantly without translating first.
And you almost surprise yourself.
That's one of the best feelings in language learning.
So instead of asking, "When will I become fluent?" maybe we should ask a different question.
I like that idea.
Maybe something like, "Am I a little better than I was last month?"
Exactly. Compare yourself with your past self, not with someone else's present.
That's such a healthier way to measure progress.
It really is, because there will always be someone who speaks better than you. But there will also always be someone who wishes they could speak as well as you do.
That's a great perspective.
Another thing learners should remember is that fluency isn't the finish line.
What do you mean?
Even native speakers keep learning new words, expressions, and ways of communicating throughout their lives.
So learning a language never really ends.
Exactly. It simply changes. At first, you're learning basic conversations. Later, you're improving your vocabulary. Then you're refining pronunciation, understanding humor, catching cultural references, and expressing more complex ideas.
So fluency is really a journey, not a destination.
That's how I see it.
Before we finish, let's review the biggest ideas from today's episode.
Great idea.
First, understanding English and speaking English are different skills.
Right? Listening gives you knowledge. Speaking builds the ability to use that knowledge.
Second, don't let fear of mistakes stop you.
Every conversation is practice. Every mistake teaches you something valuable.
Third, stop translating every sentence in your head.
Try connecting English directly to ideas, images, and experiences instead of going through your native language first.
Fourth, speak regularly.
Even 10 or 15 minutes every day can make a huge difference if you're consistent.
Fifth, use practical techniques like shadowing, talking to yourself, speaking with AI, and having conversations with language partners.
Those habits train your brain to respond more naturally and confidently.
And finally,
Be patient with yourself.
Progress takes time.
But if you keep showing up every day, even in small ways, you'll be amazed by how much your English improves over the months.
I really hope today's conversation has helped anyone who's ever felt frustrated because they could understand English, but struggled to speak it.
If that's you, remember this. The fact that you understand English is already a huge achievement. You're much closer to speaking confidently than you probably realize.
Don't wait until you feel perfect.
Start speaking now. Keep your sentences simple. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Every conversation moves you one step forward.
And remember, fluency isn't about speaking without mistakes.
It's about communicating your ideas with confidence, even when your English isn't perfect.
Thanks so much for spending this time with us today. We hope this conversation gave you practical ideas that you can start using immediately.
Keep listening, keep practicing, keep speaking, and most importantly, enjoy the process. Every sentence you speak is another step toward becoming a more confident English speaker.
Take care, keep believing in yourself, and we'll see you in the next episode.
See you next time. Happy learning.